Hello students, in this video I'm going to explain the international market segmentation and giving a general overview of this process and presenting the first step of this, that will be the variable selection. First of all, we need to be aware about the market definition. Usually, when you think about the market in terms of the general concept of market segmentation, we're thinking about the separation of different groups of customers. But in general, when you think about international markets or international marketing, we cannot start by creating segments of customers if we don't think before in the segments of countries. And this is one very important aspect of international market segmentation. Usually, we can segment countries or group of countries or regions in the world and making some categories based on variables, based on some patterns. And when you do that, of course, when you segment a country, inside each country, you're going to have a lot of heterogeneity. But it's much easier for you to look to this general data and start with some understanding of some big picture in each country that you have. But of course, this is not enough for making a decision. You need to go beyond that, and in each country that you're planning to have your operations, you need to look to the customer behavior. You need to look to the group of customers that exist there. This means that you in some way you need to make a group of homogeneous customers and look to these groups in each country. Of course, it's not so easy to create segments of customers in different countries because the variables can change. Usually you don't have the variables to make that. And we're going to see that in many times you need to have primary data to really have this group of customers segmented. And primary data means that you need to collect data with questionnaires, surveys, interviews, and it's so costly. If you try to do that in different countries in the world, that is basically impossible, even for large-scale enterprises to do that. But basically, this is the kind of segmentation that will be more homogeneous. So basically, you're taking into account all heterogeneity that exists between different people when you create this group of customers. So what is the best approach when you think about market segmentation in terms of international marketing? Usually we need to have one approach that is named the mix and merge. What is that? It's a multi-step approach. First of all, you're going to make a segment of countries, and with some general characteristics of these countries in the world, you can create groups. For instance, just a basic example, you can use a classification of the World Bank in terms of economic development, and you can create other categories using variables that are important to your business, like the population or the size of a specific age group in each country, or even the technological acceptance of these countries. And using these variables that usually are very easy to get, it's very easy to find this data in many public sources. With that, you can create segments of countries. And after that, you're going to make a selection of some few countries, like 5 or 4 countries, to make a deeper analysis. And in these countries, you're going to search for additional information, usually try to search for secondary data, research from government that can tell you additional information about consumer behavior, like for instance, the expenditure in different product categories. In Brazil, we have, for instance, the family budget research, pesquisa de orçamentos familiares in Portuguese, and you can use this research to understand what's the level of consumption of anything that you have in the country, of wine, of steak and energy and so on. And you can use this data to try to create a more precise segmentation of your customers. So the first step, segment the countries, and then you move to some countries and then there you're going to segment the customers. Of course, this process is not that easy, and sometimes, especially for small business, it's not so easy to get this data, especially if you need to make research with primary data, and this can be so costly for small firms to afford. And think about it when you make this selection. We say that the international market segmentation is based in these four steps. Thinking about the firm and environment, the first step will be selecting the relevant segmentation criteria, basically the variables that you're going to use for creating your segments. After that, you're going to develop appropriate segments of countries, and in that case, you're going to create categories of countries where you can have develop your strategy. In the third step, then you're going to screen these and make a more detailed analysis of each country and make a selection of some countries that can be useful for you. And after that, in this third step, then you need to choose some few target markets, just a few lists, like 5 or 4 countries, and most of the time you're not going to choose more than 10 countries, even if you're a large-scale enterprise. And in the fourth step, then you're going to make the segmentation of customers. That is also named in terms of international marketing as micro-segmentation. In that case, you're going to develop segments of customers in each country that you're qualifying and make some analysis if these customers are, how the segments of customers are present in these countries that you selected in the previous step. Looking for the first step, the variable selection. Basically here you need to select some variables to create the categories of countries. And in general, we can say that you can segment countries based on some general characteristics that are very easy to measure, that are usually very easy to achieve, and you can use that variables for creating the segments. Or you can move to more specific characteristics that will be more close to the customer behavior, and because of that, probably if you have access to these variables, they are going to have a better representation of the customer behavior in each country. So what are the let's look to what happens when you move to general characteristics. Usually it's very easy to measure that, it's very cheap to have access to that, and it's very easy to transform this information in actions, in some practice for your international strategy. But in the other way, if you look to the specific characteristics, usually they are very difficult to measure, and it's not so easy to obtain these variables like cultural characteristics, or it's not so cheap to access these variables, and sometimes it's not so easy to transform the segments of countries based on these variables in some specific actions or practices in your business. However, this is the variables that will have a higher level of relevance when you deal with customer behavior. So here we have a challenge. You can move to general characteristics, and then when you move to the customer segments in the next stage, you can have countries that will be very similar, so it will be very hard for you to find some differences in terms of customer behavior. Or you can look to these specific characteristics, and then it will be costly, probably it will be not easy to find this information. But once you have these and you move to the next stage of segmentation to understand your customer behavior, probably the countries and segments in each country, you have a lot of differences in terms of their customer behavior. So which factors you can use when you move to general characteristics, like geographic characteristics in the north, in the south, in a region in the world, the language that they spoke, you can use that as a variable. Political factors like the form of the political system and how long the president or the leader are in the government. You can use many demographical variables, are very easy to have information like rural area population, urban area population, and GDP per capita. You can have information about age groups and many others. And economical variables, you can move to inflation, the public debt, and so on. In this industrial structure, and I'm going to present all of these in industrial structure and technology. You can look to the level of technology or this industrial structure. For instance, how the competitiveness index presents some measures on that. And you can move also to the doing business index or to the economic freedom index. They will show you a lot of information about industrial structure that you can use for creating your segments. And social organization, so what is the how the society is organized in general, what are the levels of power and so on. And finally, you can look to religion and education to try to create these segments. And just to point out, since religion is a very important proxy of cultural behavior, and religion is really easy to measure, using religion, and basically this information is very easy to find in many different open sources like the World Bank or the World Economic Forum, and so you can use religion as a proxy to try to estimate some cultural aspects of these different countries in the world. And moving to more specific characteristics, you can look to cultural traits. Usually you need to have a research like Hofstede model or the Globe project to have that. It's not possible to have this information without some primary research. You can look to lifestyle. It's even more difficult to achieve that. But sometimes you can have some behaviors like the percentage of people that work out weekly, or the percentage of people consuming some that are not consuming meat. Sometimes you have data on that. And personality, it's even more difficult. Basically, I don't know any global comparison of personality traits, but you can try to find some research that try to make the personality traits in different regions in the world, but in different countries, but you're never going to have a full database of all countries that are comparable. And also you can look to attitudes and tastes. Basically, this means that you need to find out specific research in each country and pick up the data to build up a database and then make your market segmentation. So in general, companies, you look for general characteristics, and if they have some access to some specific characteristics, or if they have like information on some other research. For instance, I know that ACNL is the major marketing research firm in the world. They have many information about cultural characteristics and lifestyle, but then you need to buy it from them, and it's not that cheap. It's very expensive indeed. And these are the concepts that we are planning to present in this first step of the international market segmentation. In the next video, we are going to continue in the next steps. So see you in the next videos. Bye.